If the Epstein Files did not implicate the rich and powerful, they would have been released months ago. I'm Larry Fedorik, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 17, Chapter 10.
Epstein Files.
Let me repeat. If the Epstein Files did not implicate the rich and powerful, they would have been released months ago. That's just logic. Is there any other rational conclusion we can draw from the continued back and forth, the debate on whether to fully release the Epstein Files? How can we accept the excuses like, there's nothing to see here, we have to protect the victims, or Epstein is dead, Maxwell's in prison, it's over? It's not over. Victims still suffer. Guilty people walk free. Justice has not been served. A few facts are evident. First of all, we all know that Jeffrey Epstein was a sex trafficker, a pedophile, a rapist. Secondly, Ghislaine Maxwell was his partner in crime. The rich and powerful who appear either in Epstein's address book or on a passenger manifest from an Epstein jet flight log or in a photo or video socializing with him, they are not guilty by association, but they feel guilty of association. And I understand what every media lawyer tells every news anchor to say, that just because your name is associated with Jeffrey Epstein does not mean you're guilty of a sex crime. That's true. But continued secrecy does nothing to allay our suspicions. In fact, it only serves to raise them.
I'm the most transparent president probably in the history of this country.
Incidentally, there are actually two that we know of, so-called little black books, address books belonging to Epstein. And they are literally little black books. One is in the possession of the FBI. The other belongs to a farmer in Vermont. It's an odd story. In the early 90s, a New Yorker walking up Fifth Avenue sees a small black book on the sidewalk. She picks it up, starts flipping through it, sees that it's someone's address book. Addresses, phone numbers, names like Rockefeller, Kennedy, Trump. So she keeps it. The New York artifact, a souvenir, ephemera. By 2006, Epstein is indicted in Florida, and his name starts to get national attention. She remembers Jeffrey Epstein, that old book I found years ago. I think now it might have been his. So she contacts some media, but no one gets back to her. Then she didn't have enough money to repair the brakes on her car, so she put the book on eBay. That's when it was purchased by a guy who lives on a farm in Vermont. He's also a student of politics and the like. He enlists the assistance of an investigative show called Insider, who hire experts to authenticate it. Plus, reporters begin calling everyone in the book. Numbers that were still active drew different responses. Many people saying, yeah, I knew him, but that's about it. All that was proved, according to Insider, is that the book was authentic, and it seemed that even in the early 90s, Epstein was already trying to expand his sphere of influence. To what end? Well, we won't know for sure, at least not about that particular early black book. So who was this Jeffrey Epstein? Let's have a look, and I'll be brief because, this is not a tribute. Jeffrey Epstein was born in Brooklyn, New York in January of 1953, hardworking middle-class family. Epstein went to local public schools, eventually ended up at NYU studying mathematics, but left without a degree. After knocking around at a few different jobs, he ended up with an entry-level position at a global investment bank, Bear Stearns, where he quickly rose through the ranks. Eventually, he went out on his own as a financial advisor and made millions. At the time of his death, his estate was said to be worth around $600 million, including several homes, a couple of private Caribbean islands, private jets, a yacht, a lot of cash, and other extravagant trappings. Certainly not the multi-billionaire some said he was, but obviously enough money to move quite comfortably within those circles. How exactly he accumulated the wealth, well, that's part of the investigation, part of the scandal. Yes, he did make millions as a financial guru, but it is thought that he also accumulated wealth through sex trafficking. either by charging billionaire clients for that service or blackmailing them with recordings he kept of these clients having sex with underage girls. A former employee testified that he once saw a media room in Epstein's mansion in New York, with monitors showing images from pinhole cameras in every part of the house. Others have said that his Virgin Island properties were also wired for pictures and sound. Ghislaine Maxwell, well, she was born on Christmas Day 1961. She was the 9th and youngest child of Czech-born British media proprietor Robert Maxwell, whose eventual shady business dealings brought grand fraud charges and an apparent suicide off the Canary Islands in 1991. Some say he didn't jump, some say he slipped and fell, some say he was pushed off his yacht in the Canary Islands, the yacht he called Lady Ghislaine. Reports vary, but some say it was Robert Maxwell who introduced Ghislaine to Epstein in the early to mid-1980s. The two did have a romantic relationship for years and remained connected right up until his death in 2019. And yeah, that's right. Epstein died in 2019. Doesn't it seem like it was just yesterday? You have to wonder, at what point did Jeffrey Epstein realize he was a pedophile? A term he likely didn't apply to himself. But he had to realize that he liked and coveted young girls as an adult. And at what point was making millions as a financial advisor just not enough, where he entered the field of global sex trafficking? That doesn't just happen by accident. It's not like you're Jeff Bezos. You open an online bookstore and then you realize, hey, I could be delivering other things. Or maybe it was. Maybe Epstein found out, hey, I'm not the only rich guy who enjoys sex with underage girls. Maybe there's money in this. Isn't it great when you can make a good living doing something you love? Who knows? It's depraved. Then you also have to wonder, at what point do you introduce this into a romantic relationship? By the way, honey, I've been meaning to mention. And how does honey, Ghislaine, go, why, that sounds like fun. I think I can be of assistance. These two people somehow found each other. For a time, they were a New York power couple, sought after by high society, sharing this dark secret, or perhaps on the hunt for victims. During this current controversy, you may have heard a lot of people are referring back to a sweetheart deal Jeffrey Epstein received from the Florida justice system. It really was quite remarkable, unbelievable. Here's a synopsis. In 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida, opened up an investigation into Epstein after a 14-year-old girl's parents say he paid her for a massage. Police gather more similar allegations, and they noticed this Florida activity began as far back as 2002, involving his Palm Beach residence, just down the street from Mar-a-Lago. By mid-2006, a grand jury indicted Epstein, and Palm Beach police turned the case over to the FBI. A U.S. attorney working with the FBI submits a draft indictment citing 60 counts against Epstein, along with a summation of the evidence backing those charges. It takes about a year, but Epstein's attorneys finally meet with the top prosecutor in Florida, one Alex Acosta. If that name sounds familiar, in 2017, Trump named Acosta as his Secretary of Labor. But in 2006, Acosta offers this deal. They say their office will cease further investigation of Epstein if he pleads guilty to 2 state charges, he agrees to accept a prison term, and registers as a sex offender. Also, he would have to set up a system for his victims to seek damage payments. Epstein pleads guilty. He is sentenced to 18 months at a minimum security facility. However, he is allowed out for 12 hours each day on a work furlough, so he can go back to his Palm Beach mansion and do whatever he does there. And then he's completely released in only 13 months. Within the next 5 years, Epstein does settle several civil lawsuits filed by alleged victims, details and amounts never disclosed. In 2015, one Virginia Giuffre sues Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation after Maxwell calls her a liar for claiming to be a victim. Giuffre was famously pictured with Prince Andrew of Great Britain. In the years that followed, Giuffre also sued Prince Andrew, who denied all sexual assault allegations, but settled out of court, again for an undisclosed financial amount. But back to the Giuffre-Maxwell case, eventually also settled out of court in 2017, and it is said at the recommendation of Epstein, who wanted to avoid having to testify in the case in a court of law. By 2018, though, along comes the media, doing what they do best, speaking truth to power, and anyone else that'll listen. Julie K. Brown and the Miami Herald publish a series of reports on the actions of Epstein and Maxwell, and they basically expose Epstein's sweetheart plea deal about a decade earlier. The prosecutor of record, Alex Acosta, remember we just mentioned him? Well, he resigns his position as Secretary of Labor, admitting to no wrongdoing, but saying that this case is a distraction from the fine work they are doing at the department. At that same time, Epstein settles out of court with yet another prominent lawyer representing several alleged Epstein victims, all minors at the time of the allegations. So people are going, how can this guy be sued for all of this kind of stuff civilly and not be arrested? And, how does that work? Well, within months of all of these stories and attention, July of 2019, federal agents arrest Jeffrey Epstein. He is charged in the Southern District of New York with 1 count of sex trafficking and 1 count of conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. Within a month of that, August 10th, 2019, Epstein is found dead in his cell at New York City's Metropolitan Correctional Center. The New York City Chief Medical Examiner later concludes he died by suicide. Epstein had apparently tried to commit suicide 2 weeks earlier, but on the night in question, he was not on suicide watch. He was left alone in his cell, apparently had a surplus of bed linen. Some cameras failed to record many hours of the door to his unit. Only 1 guard was on duty, and he had been working for 24 hours straight and fell asleep. And it is true that all of this happened during the first Trump presidency. And yes, putting together all the files in the subsequent investigation happened during the Biden administration. But it was Trump who campaigned on his second term, actively promoting the fact that he would release the entire Epstein Files. And it would be he that would get to the bottom of this case.
I have been the most transparent president and administration in the history of our country by far.
But since he has even chastised the media for continuing to talk about it.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Trump's FBI has stated unequivocally that their investigation concluded that it was a suicide. They even provided some security video, evidence of Epstein's cell block showing no one entering or exiting. But they also deflected many media questions about inconsistencies in that video. A year after Epstein's death, authorities arrested and charged Ghislaine Maxwell. 6 federal crimes, including enticement of minors and sex trafficking. She was found guilty on most all of the counts, and in June of 2022 was sentenced to 20 years in prison, a sentence to be served at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida, which, by the way, is just down the street from where Ron DeSantis goes to work. And recently, the U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was at one time Trump's personal criminal lawyer, representing him in a criminal case as late as 2024. He personally flew down to Tallahassee to depose Maxwell, who now apparently is suddenly willing to spill the beans to name names, or perhaps swear under oath that Trump had nothing to do with any nefarious goings-on. Who knows? Her credibility is hugely in question at this point. And when the idea of clemency or a complete presidential pardon for Maxwell was floated, Trump did not discount the possibility.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she cooperated?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something
recommended.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought
But
about.
you wouldn't rule it out.
And we know that just days after that visit, after that deposition, Maxwell was quickly and quietly moved from the federal prison in Florida to a peaceful minimum security facility in Texas. Note that Virginia Giuffre, the best known and most vocal Epstein victim, the woman pictured as a young girl with Prince Andrew, died by suicide this past April. And though conspiracies about her death abound, her own family says she simply did not survive the continuing trauma of the Epstein case. At one point, Virginia said that she is often haunted by the image of, as she said, an old white guy grinding away on top of you. Jeez, no one should have that visual, except maybe a consenting old woman. We've also since learned that Giuffre worked underage at the spa at Mar-a-Lago and was allegedly recruited by Maxwell to go work for Epstein, which is when the series of abuses began. Giuffre has said that Maxwell was not only the procurer, playing the role of a woman that a young girl could trust as opposed to an old white guy, but that Maxwell was also an abuser and a sadistic one. Trump has offered that recruitment story now as a reason to why he broke off relations with Epstein years ago.
Well, he took people that worked for me, and I told him don't do it anymore, and he did it, and I said, stay the hell out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. He stole her.
Alex Costa is currently on the board of directors at Newsmax, a right-wing conservative news outlet that gained prominence during the first Trump presidency. We have heard, too, there is a third Epstein Black book. It's a bigger one. This supposed leather-bound 50th birthday book was put together for Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was a compilation of birthday greetings Epstein received. It is alleged that one of the pages is a greeting from Donald Trump. It's a rudimentary drawing of a naked woman, Trump's signature where the pubic hair should be, and the message, may every day be another wonderful secret. The Wall Street Journal, a Rupert Murdoch property, published the story, but not an image of the greeting, and were promptly sued by Trump. I really don't care about that book that much. It's not at the heart of the issue. It's a distraction. I only care that Trump may be lying about it.
So happy birthday, asshole. Happy birthday, asshole.
U.S. Congress could, of course, vote to demand the release of all the Epstein files. But instead of doing that, the Speaker of the House and Trump puppet, Republican Mike Johnson, released Congress a day early for summer vacation. So they may vote on it in September. Many Republicans, and even now people within the Trump MAGA base, are saying that they should be released, redacted to protect the names of victims who want to remain anonymous, but otherwise released. They are criticizing this Trump political strategy. Instead of making it go away, he is pretty much assuring that this will be back with a vengeance in the fall. Back, maybe even still here as a story, as a concern. This shouldn't be political. This should be about justice. But I guess if a lot of politicians are in the files, that's what it's going to be. There you have it. That's pretty much everything, at least to the time of this recording. What happens next? Nothing would surprise me. Did you notice a lot of suicide and death surrounding this entire thing? This is going to sound crazy, and I don't really believe it, but I was even suspicious of the death of Trump's first wife, Ivanka, mother of Don Jr., Ivana, and Eric. Ivanka Trump died in July of 2022. How does a healthy woman in her early 70s, a former competitive alpine skier, suddenly fall down the stairs of her apartment and crack open her noggin? What did she know about Donald and Jeffrey? Now, I know that's crazy, right? But this is all so crazy. So crazy that even that doesn't sound totally out of the realm of possibility. Somebody put out a hit on Ivanka. Oh, and you want to hear insane? There's a whole movement of people that believe that Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and her father, Robert Maxwell, were lifelong spies for Mossad, which is the Israeli intelligence agency. Some go as far as saying that Jeffrey Epstein was a made-up person, and the only reason this persona was created was not for sex trafficking, but to gather damning evidence against the rich and the powerful to be used at the discretion of the Israeli intelligence service when necessary. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I'm just pointing out that it exists. Epstein Files. Hey, Bill Clinton, are you in there? Bill Gates, are you in there? Remember, Melinda Gates cited Epstein as one of the reasons for their divorce.
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no. Any of the questions remaining about what Bill's relationship there was, those are for Bill to answer.
Bill Gates now saying he'll give away all of his billions within his lifetime to help the world, or possibly to try and buy back a positive legacy. If the Epstein Files did not implicate the rich and powerful, they would have been released months ago.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? That is unbelievable.